Hi, welcome to The Table, the podcast where we share real stories, struggles, and victories as we walk together in faith. I'm really excited to share this week's conversation with you. We're in a series talking about some of the challenges that you might find when you're looking for community, when you're living in community, and I'm really grateful for this perspective on what does it look like to start new community, to foster new community and pour into a new community. I know not everybody might be in a season of starting a new church or a new mission, but we are all always starting new things. We're joining new groups at school. Maybe you are visiting a new church, you have a new job. We're always having to get into new groups of people and share who we are and start to foster community. So I'm just really excited for everyone to get to hear this episode because it was so encouraging to me. So grab a chair and join me as we welcome Jess Clemons to the table.
Okay, sounds good. All right, here we go. Awesome. Hi, Jess. Welcome to the table.
Awesome. I'm so excited and thrilled and just honored to be here and just get to hang out with you and talk a little bit today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I am so excited. For all of our listeners, I know a lot of them probably already know you, but I will say a little bit about how I know you, and then I'll let you do like a real introduction of yourself. The funny thing is that we're sitting in this seat. I don't actually know like your whole story. I don't know you super well. We don't have like this deep relationship before this, but I have known you for a while. We've been in church together, growing up in kind of the same circles for a long time. And so I'm just excited to get to sit down and have an uninterrupted conversation with you and get to know you a little bit more. But we have been spending some time together over the last several months and getting to know each other and getting to know your babies and sit in church and listen to your husband preach. And so I'll let you tell everybody about that in a little bit. But it's funny, I felt like the Lord put you on my heart several months ago. And I've talked about this a few episodes ago, but I didn't really know why or what we were going to talk about or how it was going to go. I felt like you were someone that needed to come on. And so it's been really cool to watch how the Holy Spirit just kind of strung all of these people and all of these conversations together. So I have no doubt that's going to happen today. Tell everybody, Jess Clemons, who you are, a little bit about your family, whatever you want to share.
Absolutely. Well, like you mentioned, my name is Jessica Clemons. My husband and I have been high school sweethearts since I was 15. So our story starts really early on, but even before that, my relationship with the Lord started when I was really young. And so I'm super grateful for that. My parents really tried to foster that. My mom, she took us to church all the time. And so I didn't grow up in the missionary Baptist world. I grew up primarily going to a Baptist church when I was really young. And then we ended up going to a non-denominational church here in Nashville. And so along the way, kind of was really grateful because the Lord placed my best friend in my life when I was in 5th grade. And so just looking back, I just know the Lord has had such a hand on my life and has kind of, placed the right people there. But yeah, that's kind of where my story begins. I'm super grateful that he came into my life when I was so young. But when I started to get to know her around middle school age, I really started to get interested in kind of what the Lord wanted for my life and learning that I really wanted him to guide my decisions and kind of my relationship with other people and just be the foundation. So anyways, met her and she's still a huge part of my life. She's actually supposed to give birth any day now. She's overdue. So that'll be a fun experience to walk on. But anywho, so met Dylan a few short years later, and we've just been kind of walking this journey ever since then. So yeah, I got saved around the time I was 7 years old, so I was really young. But I just remember the Lord specifically talking to my heart. I was 7 years old driving around to Florence, Alabama in a red pickup truck with my mom. And I just remember, the Lord talking to me and letting me know that I was lost and just giving me this incredible peace. And it's just so funny now that I have children of my own, we pray about that. They're not quite to that age yet, but, you just pray about that moment. And so as they're starting to get closer and closer to that age, I'm just really excited for, them to have that experience with the Lord and, have that first memory with him. And so, yeah, that was a little bit all over the place, but that's a little bit about me and kind of where my story started, and we've just grown from there. So it's been a fun, interesting, wild ride, but it's been wonderful.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about it, and I have a feeling we'll get to hear more stories and more details of that wild ride in our conversation later on. But before I jump the gun and dive in, whenever we have a guest on the podcast, we ask them these three questions about community, and we do this. Our listeners are probably tired of me talking about it, but we do this because we're trying to set an example and give some real life things that you could ask the people in your community to stay connected to each other and to grow your relationships and help you to grow closer to the Lord. So my first question for you, Jess, is in the last couple of days, couple of weeks, what is something that you're feasting on? How are you fueling your spirit?
Yeah, I love this question. When I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, this is a good one. I think, what's so funny is if you would have asked me this question like 2 years ago, I think my answer would have been completely different. And, I love that about life and our relationship with the Lord. But in the last year, so I have 2 kiddos. For anybody that doesn't know, I have a almost 5-year-old and an almost 1-year-old. Their birthdays are 2 weeks apart. And, I felt like when I had my daughter, Lila, I just felt like I had like I didn't feel like my routine changed as much. She was a very laid back baby. I wasn't working at the time, so I was a stay-at-home mom when I had her. And so just the way that I could still be in relationship with the Lord didn't really change very much in my day-to-day. But when we had our second baby, Rhodes, you just don't have as much time. You don't have everything is way more interrupted. You get interrupted twice as much now. And so I've just really been, one of the things that I feel like the Lord has just kind of reminded me of is just surrendering in as many moments of the day as what you can. So obviously prayer, that obviously, sets the motion for your day and kind of how you operate. But just trying to find things when I do have some quiet time, whether it's, we were just talking about laundry and all the aspects of, everyday life. I've really loved listening to different podcasts and really getting to like learn deeper about like the history and behind different stories in the Bible, and just like really trying to expand my knowledge, because I don't necessarily have a massive amount of time to like sit down and read a ton and to figure out, I don't have 3 hours of the day that's uninterrupted. And when I do, it's at the end of the day, and it's like, that's not, my most focused, like best self. And so I've really been just trying to get as creative as I can in the last year while he's so little and while she's so busy, of just trying to make the most of it. Doesn't have to look like the way that it used to. So just listening to podcasts. Worship music is always on. I work from home. Rhodes is also home with me. So I work part-time from home and have him home with me at the same time. And so just trying to incorporate that, whether it's, I'm feeding him lunch and like taking that time to pray with us together, or, listening to podcasts while I'm doing the laundry, or worship music, just trying to incorporate it as much into my life in the small moments. And yeah, so that's what's working for us right now. So it doesn't look quite as traditional as what it used to, of like being able to sit down and like study, or, give as much like super quiet time is what I used to have. But that's what's fueling me right now, and just really trying to seek and be mindful of like, what are those experiences that I can be looking out for. So that's what I'm trying to do as much as I can.
I love it. I love it. I love that you are honest about, like, it used to be different. Now I'm in a different season, and you're just whatever you can do to spend time with the Lord, He will honor. And I think that's like I will not get on my soapbox in this moment, but I just think of all the conversations I've had with people. Like I remember Jenna talking about how she would just play scripture in the car. Like if she had 5 minutes, she'd just like listen to a verse in the car, and that's it. And that might be all you get. And there's a sweet lady at church, and she encouraged me to like put a scripture on the washer and on the refrigerator and at the sink. And so whenever you can soak in some moments, I think that's great. And honestly, there's a lot of mamas who are going to listen to this who will be really encouraged to know that you can still grow in the Lord, even though you don't have that really quiet, structured time to study like you used to.
Yeah. And I think one thing too that the Lord has revealed to me this last year, because I was really struggling with that at first. Like, I feel like I have no time, we're so busy all the time. And it's like, all these kind of thoughts creep in. But even in the busy moments, one of the prayers that I've had just this whole year is like, Lord, I give you today. Like, that's just something I'm constantly repeating to myself, because there are days that feel crazy and hectic. And, just taking a second to take a deep breath and be like, Lord, I give you today, like, your will be done on my life and our family, I give you that. So, even if I don't have the ideal, morning because somebody wakes up early or, whatever it is, it's just, that's the thing I've been trying to practice as much as I can is, Lord, I give you today.
I love that. All right. Next, we're going to talk about fellowship. So, Jess, where are you finding fellowship lately?
Yeah, so many places. I feel like our world and life is just immersed in it right now, which has been really sweet. Obviously, with the worship gathering and the mission that we're doing there, we're finding fellowship there, but we're also trying to foster fellowship, which is like a whole other kind of realm of life. So obviously with that community of people, it's been amazing to find fellowship there and just getting to know a lot of people. I actually, because I didn't grow up missionary Baptist, Dylan knows so many people. His family knows a lot of people. So I have a lot of people that come up to me that know me and I don't know them, or they know a lot about me and I don't know a lot of, about everybody else. And so which is really sweet because I'm fostering really new relationships, which feels really sweet, because I think in other phases of our life, it can be really hard to meet new people, in outside of very traditional, like, the workplace and that sort of thing. So definitely, obviously, our mission, finding fellowship, but I'm really blessed. The company that I work for, pretty much everybody that works there just has a really strong faith. Actually, it was funny. I was on a leadership call the other day and my boss paused and he was like, actually, because he was just talking about and saying he was going to be praying for our weekends because he knows a lot of us are involved in a lot of like mission work and ministry. And he was like, actually, I think mostly everybody is like involved in like a high level ministry, whether they lead worship at their church or their husband's a pastor or they have a main role at their church. And so it's just really sweet. I feel like the Lord, so many years ago when I started working here, he was preparing me for that. Like that was a blessing from him and a gift specifically from him that he knew I was going to need. And so, yeah, it's just obviously finding fellowship. Not everybody gets to go to work and talk about how the Lord is moving in their life and get to share that. And also it be reciprocated. And so, just learning from those women in my life, because I mostly work with women. There's a couple of guys in there, but the majority of us are women. And so just getting to have that extra set of fellowship that, maybe if I don't get to find community throughout the week with other people in my life, I'm working with these women all day long. And so it's just nice to incorporate that as another layer of relationship. So yeah, that's probably the two main areas that I think I find fellowship the most. But one other thing I will say that I can add to that is just really trying to, if you're listening to this, really trying to make fellowship where you're at, whether that's in the grocery store or meeting somebody new for the first time. I feel like the Lord revealed to me a lot over the last year or two that not everybody gets that. I feel very blessed to have a workplace and get to have a church community that loves on me so well. But not everybody else has that. And so sometimes like your interactions with people and through the day-to-day of like being in the grocery store, or, you know, going into Target or wherever you're at, that may be their only opportunity. So it's like, how can you impact them and foster fellowship in their life and share a little bit about the Lord? So I just want to encourage, you know, if you're a busy mama like me and Catherine, you know, to try to create that in your everyday.
That's great encouragement. And I could ask you so many questions, and I'm going to wait because we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. All right. So for all these people that you don't know or that don't know you well, and for me, who we don't know each other well, now I'm going to ask you to tell us something that you are needing forgiveness for lately.
Yeah, I actually read this one off to Sean. And also, if you're listening to this, I call my husband Sean. I call him Dylan. His real name is Sean. He goes by Dylan. Anyways, so if you hear me interchangeably do that, it's just, that's what we do. But anyways, yeah, I read him this question and he was like, ooh, that's a doozy. I was like, I know. Yeah. But yes, I think for me, I'm a very like structured person. I love knowing what's coming up. I love being able to anticipate what's coming up. And I think control is like a really strong word, but I think it's so true for a lot of mamas out there, because there's a lot of things that are not in our control. And so I think what I've just had to really ask for forgiveness for is just trusting and discerning to the Lord that it's easy to say like, Lord, let your will be done, but to really like appreciate and actually surrender yourself to what the Lord wants is really hard, especially when there's like expectations of life. And even starting this mission work, like sometimes there can be a lot of thoughts that creep in of like pressure from, you know, what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing and all of that. And so I have to ask for forgiveness a lot of just, Lord, like you've always supported me in the past. Like you've always, your guidance has never failed me. And so I'm so sorry it took me a second to put down my will for yours, you know? And so, and that's really hard because, you know, you just, especially when you care about something, you know, I think sometimes people think of forgiveness as something like horribly wrong that you're doing. But in certain scenarios, it's like, Lord, I'm sorry. I just care a lot, you know, like I really want this to be your will and what you want for my life and other people's life and whoever is around me. And like, I want it to bring glory to your name. And so sometimes we have a thought in our mind of like what that looks like, but you know, really, are we truly listening to what the Lord really wants us to be doing, and prioritizing his will? Because sometimes we're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and then I'll do that, you know, but that's not what he calls us to do. It's to seek him first and to put his will before our own. And so, yeah, I just, you know, honestly, that's one thing that like, I always have to find myself doing is like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I didn't prioritize that right. Like you know, I should have been more obedient faster. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that I think I'm always, you know, being reminded of and trying to do better of.
That's a great answer. I think in my life, motherhood is really what taught me that I'm not in control of anything.
Yes.
And I don't like that. Like I like to be in control of what's happening, of like what I'm doing. And man, I can so relate. And sometimes I have to be like, I'm sorry, I got off in the weeds here and I lost. Like I took my eyes off of the goal, which is to honor people. And I'm putting them back, but over and over and over again, I have to keep coming back. So I think that's a really common experience for moms, for women, period. Like I lose focus. So thank you for sharing that. As you know, as our listeners know, we're in a series right now on community. So I really want to get into like the fellowship part of this conversation. And We talked about, I think in every single episode, we talk about how important community is. That's literally why I wanted to start this, because I just felt a burden for living in community and sharing that with other people, the value of it. And like, God created us for relationships. And so, this series, if you will, is about what different things that make that challenging, or things that you face that can make it harder to find that fellowship in that community and to cultivate those relationships. And so, you are here to talk about what it looks like to foster new community. I love that you use that word in your answer earlier, because that's what you and Dylan are doing right now, is you're growing a new community. As you were talking about, when you were introducing yourself, you're talking about different ways that you've seen the Lord work in your life that like got you, that put you in the right place for where you are now. Like, tell me about, I guess first, tell us about this new community that you're creating. Let's start there.
Yeah. So our new mission is called the Worship Gathering, and it's something that the Lord placed on Dylan and I's heart. I want to say he originally spoke it to us like back in 2019 is like when he initially really put it on Dylan's heart. It actually is funny because it took me a little bit to come around to. Like, it was a lot of conversations around, why do you think the Lord is doing, like, asking you this? And, just asking really hard questions, because there is such a huge responsibility that comes with starting a mission and starting a new community. There's a lot of responsibility. And so I think it was 2019 is like when Dylan and I first started having conversations about it. And then 2020 is like the first time that in early 2020, right before COVID started, we actually sat down and had our first conversation with a couple people about it. And it was so funny because the Lord immediately revealed, they're like, we have been feeling like the Lord has been telling us this too. And so obviously that brings like reassurance and peace and all these things. And we were really, you're talking, it was like roughly 6 years ago when all this happened. So that was before we had our daughter. Like, so much life has happened when these conversations took place. And so it was so funny. After that first conversation, we're like, okay, are we supposed to start running? Like, what does this look like? And then COVID happened. And so, you're like, okay, Lord, like, is this really from you? Like, all these things are happening. Like, churches are even having a hard time, like, gathering that are established. And we had just previously come from a season of life where Dylan and I were serving at another church in Murfreesboro. And even that season of life was really hard. I remember when we felt like the Lord was telling us to leave, I just wept. I did not want to go. I was like, I have so many people here that have loved me dearly and have like poured, so many different things. And I had some really great relationships there that I felt like were starting to get really, really deep. And so it was really hard to be obedient to the Lord of saying like, hey, this is not where you guys are called to be. So, cause we were there about 4 or 5 years before we left. So anyways, fast forward, we had those conversations in 2020, COVID hit. And that was just an interesting part of life. Talking about community today, we would try to go and visit different places, but a lot of places weren't open. So we were like live streaming and like joining. And community just felt so different in that year, and just the lack of. And so there were several times that Dylan and I were like, well, we know we like want to be a part of a church. We obviously like want to be more involved, but we weren't really feeling like everywhere that we were visiting, like the Lord was not telling us to be there. And so we were just like, Lord, like, what is going on? Like, where do we need to be? And then he slowly brought us to McFerrin, which didn't make any sense at all. We were like, okay, okay, we'll join, but we don't really understand because we feel like you're also telling us to start this mission. And so, but the Lord just kind of brought all of that together, and really during that season, those couple of years, he really just provided things in our life that I think if we would have not been obedient to the Lord and just tried to run with things, that things would not have really worked out because it wasn't the Lord's timing. And so we just found so much community and so much appreciation for how community was being done and what that looked like. So yeah, our story kind of starts there. That was kind of the background of how the worship gathering started off. A couple years later, we had a couple other people approach us and were like, hey, this has been on our heart. We've heard that that it's been on yours. And so it's just crazy how the Lord has just really honestly brought people to us that have said, hey, the Lord has been talking to me about this for years and years and years. And I feel like, he's telling me that, we need to talk and have more conversations. And what does that look like for you? Like, what has he been talking to you about? And so I think Dylan and I were very surprised about that because we thought people are like, oh, they're crazy. Like, what are they doing? So, but that's not been the scenario at all. Like, people have been so welcoming and so warm and just so encouraging. And, that again is just like a testament to like what the Lord is doing and how it's been his will this whole time. By like just providing us those like brief moments of like encouragement and just letting us, know like, hey, yeah, keep going, keep moving. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit, that's the rough outline. There's so many things that have happened in between, but when it comes to like timing, the Lord has just really revealed like how his time is what it needs to be. And so that's been just a sweet adventure overall. But yeah, that's a little bit about how we started and kind of the initial conversations that took place. And
yeah, it like comes to mind that we've had a lot of pastors' wives sit in the seat with us on the podcast. And so I think there's probably a lot of people that have a similar story about their church or how they came to land in the place that they are now and where they're serving together as a couple. So I think they could really relate to this and or pray for encouragement for y'all on your behalf. But I also think about, like, I'm not a pastor's wife. And I think about seasons of my life and moments in my life where the Lord has put new community in my path. And I know that I want to talk about you guys growing your new mission and like what that looks like and how it's impacted you. But I think people experience something really similar to this a lot in life in different scenarios. Like whether you're going to a new church, you don't have to be starting it. If you're going to a new church, like you have to find and foster fellowship and connection with the people that are there. And like you talked about your job, I think about people getting a new job and having to, step out and invest in those relationships. And that takes time. And really in my experience, what motivates me through those seasons are the moments that you just talked about, where it's like, I can see the Lord's hand in really small ways, moving me closer and closer to where he wants me or growing me closer and closer to where he's placed me. And so, I think like you're in a really unique seat, you and Dylan, and this journey that you're on, but we all experience these same types of challenges in different aspects of our lives. So I just wanted to say that because there might be some pastors' wives listening to us who are in a very similar boat that you're in, but like this can encourage me in the boat I'm in too, not as a pastor's wife, not starting a new mission. So okay, so you guys started the worship gathering. You've talked about how this is something y'all did together from the beginning. And you even talked about like your feelings in the beginning and how the Lord kind of changed your heart. How has this new mission, how has it impacted your relationship with Dylan? Like how is your relationship different because of this?
Yeah, I think it has impacted it. Honestly, it's been, I think some people, we're coming up on 1 year of being a new mission, and that's praise Jesus, like, woohoo, we made it to a year. Only by the grace of God and, his will. But it definitely has, and it's been a learning opportunity, but it hasn't just impacted our relationship the last year. I think some people forget that even though we've been in the thick of it for a year, it started 6 years ago. And so, I just can tell you from like, even 6 years ago, there were so many nights that like Dylan wouldn't sleep well for like weeks at a time because he was just like, I feel this burden on my heart. I feel this burden on my heart. Like I can't go to sleep, And so it's really been like woven into our life for so long now that even that, like having that long runway, I think, has been really sweet because I think that was the Lord preparing us for right now. Like we needed the time to learn like how to navigate our relationship and what that looks like with starting a new mission. Like I think that's, he was preparing us all along in those smaller moments. And so, just really, I think one thing that I think everybody has expectations for their life is that like we're always trying to seek and find like this perfect balance in our life. And I think one thing that the Lord has really revealed to me over the last several years is like there isn't like that's just a fabricated notion of like you're going to have a perfect balance. Like life is filled with highs and lows and seasons and all the things in between. And so just really realizing that balance is not really attainable. There's things that you can prioritize for sure. I love like the glass ball versus rubber ball kind of like theory around like just realizing in your life like what is a glass ball versus a rubber ball and what can be dropped and what can't. But I think outside of that, like there isn't like this perfect sense of balance. And I think that was something that he revealed to us because in the season that we're currently in, I don't think we've ever been busier in our life. And so one thing that's changed in our relationship is just giving a lot of grace to the other person, because before babies, and I think moms and just parents in general can relate to this of like, you have life before kids and life after kids. And it can be, you kind of look back, and I know for me personally, I'm like, what was I doing with my time when I had, kids and not a job and responsibility and all these other things. But I think just really giving grace for one another, that the other person is really doing the best that they can, and just having a greater appreciation that that we're working hard together and that our goals are aligned and aimed at the same thing. And that was a really actually hard vulnerability moment right here. That was a really hard pill for me to swallow because I just really love doing things together. Like Dylan and I have grown up together, which has been such a blessing, but we started dating when I was 15. And so we've been through every phase of, graduating high school, going to college, buying a house, like all the things in life that a lot of people get to do independently. We've always done really together. And so being in this new season of just busyness and everything, I've just had such a great appreciation for what he does, because we haven't been able to do everything together. So you don't always have insight of the work that somebody is doing. And so just giving a lot of grace and just realizing like, hey, we're both doing the best that we can. And, reminding each other of, prioritizing things and trying to be really intentional about that. So that's probably the way that I feel like our relationship has changed the most. Is we weren't required in the past because of the way our relationship operated to necessarily have to do that all the time, or it was just kind of a given. It was just like, oh yeah, whatever. But now it's really required more, and just being really appreciative of the sacrifice the other person is making for just our life. And so I would say that's probably the biggest impact is just being grateful and grace, humility. Like we're going to fall short some days, the other person's going to do more some days than, the other one. So it just happens. And so just reminding ourselves that we're still aimed at the same thing, and trying to look back at the Lord for what he wants for our life and our marriage and our family.
I love that. I have struggled with balance for a long time. Like, this is just something I've wrestled with. I used to talk about it like plates. Like, I have too many spinning plates and I cannot keep them all spinning at the same time, and I don't know where to go. And I feel like I'm dropping all the plates because I can't get them all where they need to be. And I love that you said that's kind of like a sham. Like, there's not a perfect balance. And I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago. I don't know how long ago. And, it was an author, Christine Kane, and she said the very same thing you did. Like, it's a scam. There is no perfectly balanced life. You can't just be a mom 50% of the time and work 50% of the time. There's no perfect balance, but that is the goal, right? That's the ultimate testament that you have the Holy Spirit, because I want to be so in tune to the Holy Spirit that I can be, deep into whatever I'm doing with my job or with the podcast or with my family, and the Holy Spirit say, like, oh, Olivia or Millie needs you to do this thing, and me be attentive to that and go and take care of that for a minute and set something else down, and then come back to the other things that he's called us to. And like, how people, when people look at your life and say, I don't know how you do it, like Jess Clemons, I don't know how you do it, I don't know how you keep it all together, like that's such a testament to the Holy Spirit in your life, right? Like, he's working in you and orchestrating. He's holding that tension for you and leading you where you need to go. So I love that you talk about that and the grace that you guys have for each other, because that can be a really hard time when you're doing something new. And I would guess there's a lot of challenges and a lot of changes. And you have to have a lot of space for grace. One thing about the worship gathering, so Justin and I have been so blessed to get to be a part of this. And if people don't know, you guys really thoughtfully picked the time of your service for your mission so that other people that like have a church home could be a part of it and could join and be a part of this new community. And so you have an afternoon service, and it's funny, like, you're talking about how this work like has made you and Dylan do things separately and have grace for when the other one can't do one thing or another. But this opportunity for Justin and I has allowed us to worship together. And that sounds so silly because we have been in church together our entire lives. Someone was talking to us the other day about how long we've been friends, and I'm like, I don't even remember meeting him. That's how long we've known each other and been together. And so for our whole life, our whole adult life, married life, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to worship together because Justin is super involved. He works for our church. And so if other people are there to worship, there's usually something that he needs to do so that can happen the way it's supposed to happen. So at least for the last several years, like me and the girls, we sit together at church and we have church, and then we get back with Justin after, right? And so it's been really, really sweet for us to get to worship together and be together, and just the conversations that we can leave church and say, well, what do you think about that? Or what do you think about this part of the service? Or like, what stood out to you? And just like the opportunity it's given us to be together has been so sweet. So I'm grateful that the Lord is using the same thing to grow us in different ways, right? And to show up in our lives in different ways.
I love that he's showing you that, because I feel like McFerrin was that for us, because we were super involved at the last church, and it was such a huge blessing, but we were very involved at the last church, and McFerrin was kind of like the breath of air that we got to spend as a couple. And honestly, I think, again, that was so orchestrated by God, because we had just had Lila. We were in this new season of life of like trying to figure out parenthood and what does that mean, and all these different things. And so that was the first time that we had really gotten that opportunity to like sit together and be in worship together in church day to day, without having like an extra responsibility on top, like in the background of what's going on. And so yeah, it does. It brings so many great conversations. And that's why, yeah, I think it's so sweet. That's why I try to encourage anybody that's like newly getting married or even just in a relationship, like take that time to like go to church and be with the other person, because it's what the Lord is speaking to their heart may be different than what he's speaking to your
Yeah.
heart. And just being able to have those conversations. And I think a lot of people, when they've been in relationships a long time, sometimes they feel like the staleness in conversation because it's like, I already know everything about you.
Yeah.
And even with friendship too, like even if you're not in a relationship and you're listening to this, like find a friend that will go to church with you, or find a good friend at church that you can have these like back and forth conversations with, because if you haven't had the opportunity to have conversation with the Lord with somebody else about the same sermon or whatever it is, you're missing out on so much.
Yeah.
And so, I love that's, providing that for you guys, because it's what we needed in our marriage. We didn't know that that's really the Lord's intention when we got to McFerrin, but looking back, it was like, wow, thank you so much, Lord. Like we needed that. Like, especially coming out of the season of not having a church for like a year. I think we didn't have a church for like around roughly a year. We needed that. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. It's been really sweet. We've talked a lot about the sweet things. But I know that there have been hard moments, and, something Jenna and I have talked about this periodically on the podcast even, and this is not the same kind of ministry as starting a new mission. But I firmly believe now, anytime you do something for the Lord, you're going to meet some adversity from the enemy, because his goal is to keep you where you are, and he doesn't want the gospel to spread, right? So he's real crafty, real creative sometimes in how he tries to like derail the mission. Talk to me about what that's looked like for y'all, and did you anticipate, were you prepared to face what the enemy is tossing out at you?
Yeah, no, I don't think we're ever quite prepared. You're like, wasn't seeing that one coming. I think that's what makes them sneaky, right? But I think even just from the beginning, because the process was so long before we started the mission itself, I think for Dylan in particular, it was a lot about, there can be a lot of like thoughts of doubt of like, wait, is this my will, or is this the Lord's will? Like, why is this taking so long? Is this the Lord telling me that I'm not supposed to be, there was just so much, that was what was keeping him up at night. It was just the Lord trying to talk to him, but also this like, angel and devil on one shoulder, kind of like back and forth conversation. So I think really just like trying to place seeds of doubt was a big thing in the very beginning. And we were both a lot younger than what we are right now when we, so there was like a level of, we were still learning. We're always learning, but we had a lot to learn just in that aspect. But also even leading up to this mission, just, having different opinions that are thrown at you. And honestly, the majority was very encouraging. I think we were really nervous at first because we were like, what are people going to think, and just having to really block that noise out of, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. It's what are we being obedient to? Like, if this is what the Lord has placed on our heart, like this is what we're going to do. And this is what we're going to prioritize. And so really blocking those out was just kind of more of like the social anxieties and like things that I think the things that were, obstacles at first. But then things started to kind of heat up because right when things really took off the ground, we finally found a location. It took us like a year and a half to find somewhere. That was a really big obstacle. I was pregnant at the time. Yeah.
It wasn't for lack of trying. Like you didn't, it's not like you just weren't looking for a location or you were waiting for one to like drop in your lap. You were actively trying to find a place to do this, and it took a year and a half.
Yeah, but we were very intentional with our prayers
Yeah.
around that. We were like, Lord, do not open a door if it's not supposed to be open, like slam
Yeah.
it shut. And initially when we were praying that, we are like, that'll make it easier for us
Yeah.
selfishly. But then when the door is closed so many times, like I can't tell you how many emails and things that Dylan reached out to. I think at the end of it, it was like 40 something schools that we had reached out to.
Yeah.
And the one that we're in is the only one that said yes. But before we even reached out to schools, Dylan had read books about like planning new missions and like different locations. We went and visited different locations of new churches that were starting up. And there was always something that made it like an immediate no. And so that was really hard, that pressure and that feedback of like, okay, why is it always a no? Like we asked for
Yeah.
no's, but like we didn't think we were going to get this many no's.
Right.
And then it was so funny. Dylan tells this story a lot and he shared it with our church, but he was having like he also teaches, he's a 5th grade teacher. And he was at school one day, he had been sending out a lot of emails to different schools at this point. And somebody had asked him, they were like, hey, like, how is the mission going? Like, how is all the stuff with that going? And he was like, honestly, it's really hard right now. Like, it's just not happening. And, he was kind of being like gripey about it, grumpy a little bit, and just being really vulnerable with the person of like,
And
you asked,
honest.
so I'm going to
Yeah.
give you an honest answer. And it was so funny when he got back to his classroom within 30 minutes. The principal for the school that we're at right now was like, absolutely, like, when can you come meet with me and talk with me about it? So it was just, there was humor in that of like, the Lord was like, hold on, like,
He's still in
don't be so frustrated. And so, but yeah, so that was leading up. There was just a lot of that. I think the Lord taught us a lot of patience. And for those of you that are in any kind of season of waiting right now, I just want to encourage you because it can be really hard. I think when people talk about waiting, they're like, oh, it's been like 6 months or it's been a year.
Yeah.
We waited for like almost 6 years. Like that's a long time to be praying about something and to have people ask you questions. And, at some points there was also a sense of like pressure and embarrassment of, especially once we announced to like ask McFerrin to kind of extend an arm to us, and things didn't happen for a year and a half. It's like, now we're feeling a little bit embarrassed. Like we kind of stuck our neck out about it and things aren't happening, And so anyways, I think the devil was trying to throw us off with that of just like, no, just keep your eyes on the Lord and what he has. But throughout that process, right before we got the email from the school that we had been accepted, I was already like 6-7 months pregnant at the time with our youngest. And so, I immediately felt very overwhelmed because I was like, okay, this is moving. We've been praying about this for so long. I'm about to welcome this new life into the world, and that feels really scary. And so we had the first meeting, I think it was in January, with the community of people who really helped us start everything. And Dylan and I went into that meeting, and I think Dylan knew what the Lord was going to say, but I was very reluctant to it because I felt very overwhelmed. And so there were a couple different options. It was like April. We were like, should we start it in April? Should we do it during the summer, or should we do it during the fall? Like wait until August. And Rhodes was going to be born in May. So we're having these conversations in January. And I was like, there is no way we're doing it in April. Like that's 6 weeks before I'm due with Rhodes. Like, our house is a disaster because we decided to change all the rooms around. And I think Dylan, in looking back at the conversations, like he definitely knew in his heart that that's when it was going to land. But of course he was so sweet. He was like, we'll just pitch it and like, let's see what's been on everybody else's heart. And immediately everybody was like, no way are we waiting till August. And summer is a horrible time because everybody's on vacations. And so that left April. And I immediately in that meeting, my heart sunk to my stomach. I was like, oh my goodness, Lord, what are we doing? But over those next few months, like looking back, that was definitely the right move, 1000%. Like we needed to do that. And it was so funny. I was laughing with like some coworkers afterward, and I was like, well, you just can't time your blessings. So like we've been praying this for 6 years. So like I can't be picky at this point of like when this is gonna happen. And so we started the church in April, about a month before. Was it about a month before? Oh no, it was the week before we launched. We were out of town at Disney. And this is the biggest one that I think people get thrown off by, but we were in Disney, and there we get a call from our home security system, and we initially just ignored it because I think we were like on a roller coaster ride or something like that. And then we get a call from my mother-in-law, and she was like, hey guys, your security company called me, and we're on our way over to your house. Like apparently like there's been some storm damage, and so there had been like some like tornado weather that had come through while we were in Disney. And we were thinking, oh, it's just like the power line, whatever. Yeah. And then she calls us back, and she's crying, and I was like, oh no. And there was just tons of trees that had fallen around our house, probably like close to 15 trees massive trees that had fallen around our house. It was like on our we had to get our roof replaced, our fence replaced. Like honestly, this past year, we've had to replace almost every appliance in our house, from like our water heater to our HVAC, like everything has had to be replaced. And that was the week before we had this Disney trip planned before we had landed on the date, but that was the week before the mission launched. And so that was like, if you looked everywhere else in our neighborhood, nobody else had a tree down. It was just, as it happened in the middle of the day. And so I guess it was just like a big gust of wind, but it knocked down like 15 trees. And then also our worship leader, Marty, he had the same thing happen to him at his house. Like 2 nights later, they had a whole bunch of storm damage where they had to get their roof replaced and all this stuff. So it was like, definitely. And they didn't have anybody in their neighborhood that had damage either. So it was like, felt very targeted. Yeah, for sure. But I just remember, sitting with Dylan at Disney. I had, 8 months pregnant. I'm like, I was crying. And then we just ended up laughing. We were like, you know what? This is so not about us. Like like, this is just the devil trying to do his thing. And we're not going to give him the satisfaction of that. Like we're still moving forward. It doesn't matter if we have, our house is in chaos, like we're moving forward. So, I think there were just like several instances of when things have happened. And, I think for anybody that's going through that season, just stay strong and, keep seeking the Lord, and he's gonna provide all that you need. So, I think that's definitely some of the instances that, that things got thrown off a little bit.
I had no idea. I didn't know that. I knew about Marty's house, but I didn't know about y'all's.
It was the same week.
That is crazy. Yeah. What? I didn't prepare you for this, but I feel like you have a really unique perspective. What is it like having a new baby and a new mission at the same time? Are those things similar? Do like they need the same kind of care and attention? Like, what have you learned about having those two things happen at the same time?
I think just giving yourself a lot of patience and grace. And I just feel really blessed because I feel like the Lord has like really showered that on me, because you can't be everywhere at one time, and you can't be everything for everyone at one time either. And so I think they are similar in a way, where you have this like new mission that's so fragile, and like you want to do a good job, right? Just like with motherhood and like having a new baby, like this fresh life is into the world. And I think there are a lot of similarities, but I think overall, just like giving yourself grace. If the Lord has called you to do anything in your life and you're starting something new, it's a very vulnerable moment, just like having a new baby, you're very vulnerable, all these different things. But I think, just leaning on the Lord and leaning into what he wants, that gives me a lot of peace, because I'm like, you know what, at the end of the day, this is for God. Like, this isn't for me. This isn't ours. Like, as much as we're pouring into this mission, this is not our mission. Like, this does not belong to us. Like, nothing in this life belongs to us. Even my babies don't belong to me. Like, they belong to the Lord. And that's really hard. Even as a mom, because you just love them. Like, they're just the best little babies. And we love this mission, but at the end of the day, like, this is not ours, like, this is the Lord's. And so, I think just reminding ourselves of that is like, that gives me a lot of peace at the end of the day, is like, all I can do is be obedient and to show up as much as I can and to ask for forgiveness, ask for grace along the way. And we're not going to do everything perfectly. And I think that's been the same thing with motherhood. Like, your kids are going to have baggage from how you raised them too, like we all have. That's my fear as a parent, is like, I just don't want them to ever feel that. But they're going to have trials and tribulations in their life, and they're going to have to learn how to navigate it, just like, we have to learn in ours. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities, but having a baby and starting a mission is not for the weak. But having a community of people around you that can help support you and love you, like, we are trying to foster community, but I need it just as much, if not, I feel like I need it just as much as everybody else. And even having, what one of the best blessings from this mission is, like, all of our families are under one roof. Growing up, like, we've gone to church with Dylan's parents on and off, but like, my mom and dad are separated. They got divorced when I was really young. And so my dad and his girlfriend, they come to our mission every week. And my mom comes to our mission every single week. My sister and her husband come really frequently. And so it's like, wow, like, our families are all worshiping under the same roof. And I know that won't necessarily be the case forever. Like, but I'm going to really enjoy this season, and having them there to, pass roads off, or, go change the diaper while I'm trying to help, set something up for the church, or visit with somebody and connect with somebody, and find relationship. Like, the Lord has just been so good to us in that way, and just providing us the community that we've needed and the support that we've needed to, be obedient to him.
I love it. I think this is my last question. Yeah. How are you staying, we'll see. How are you staying grounded in who you are and whose you are in the middle of all of these things changing and trying to grow new things? How are you staying grounded?
I think obviously prayer, like, just being able to ask for the Lord to keep you focused on him is, and not let your own thoughts and ideas replace his will, like, I think that's really important, because when we get excited, even I know you plan, for VBS and stuff, and it's like, you can get so excited with the planning and all the extra things, and it's like, wait, hold on, Lord, let me make sure that we're covered here first. So just praying, again, one of the notes that I think I had was just trying to give grace along the way. And that's, really just prayer and grace, and just trying to be really thoughtful and intentional with what I'm prioritizing, because I'm a very distracted person. I always laugh to Dylan because I'm very much a rule follower. Like, growing up, like, I did not want to get in trouble at school. Like, I was not going to break the rules. I always made a joke of like, I could never get away with anything, because I'm always going to be like, if you're with me doing something bad, we're going to get caught, because like, we're going to get caught. That's just how it works for me. So I'm very much a rule follower. So I think it's funny that there's not, like, when you think of like traditional temptations, that's not really a personal struggle of mine, but being distracted and busy is. And so just trying to remind myself, like, things get busy very, very fast. And so just trying to pray and ask the Lord, like, hey, okay, I'm feeling busy. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Like, where's the direction that I need to be going? Yeah. So, that's my attempt at being as grounded as possible. It's just continuing to seek him. I think if you're in any season of life, like, that's honestly making intentional time for the Lord and seeking him as much as you can is really, that's the only thing that's going to keep you grounded. If you don't have that, like, you're not going to be grounded. So, that's what I fall back on for sure.
I think that's a great reminder. It's a great reminder for me, for anyone, like you said, in any season. It makes me think about all the other guests that have come on the podcast even, and I've said the same thing. Like, if I'm not if I'm not pouring into my relationship with the Lord, then I'm kind of everywhere. I don't know where I am and what's going on. And I could take
Yeah,
myself down 12 different side roads and not be exactly where he wants me.
right.
So I think that's such good encouragement. What did we not say that you want to say? What's in your notes that we didn't talk about?
Let's see. Not too much. I think we covered a lot. I just, I'm so thankful for what the Lord has done in our life and the community. I know this series is about community, and just so grateful for that. I wanted to encourage anybody that's listening, like, if you don't have community, seek it. Like, be
Yeah.
intentional about seeking it. There's so many stories in the Bible and so many instances in the Bible where the Lord encourages us to seek out community. I even looked up when we were talking about this, because I feel like fellowship and community are just like so interchangeable.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
was like, what is really the true like definition of like community versus fellowship? And so if you're struggling with that area of your life, one of the things that mentioned is like community is about presence and being together. And I think that's why the Lord put such an emphasis on, now we have streaming and all the other things these days, which is
Yeah.
great. Like, if you're sick or can't be there, but there is purpose behind community and being
Yeah.
present with people. But to take it a step further, like, fellowship is truly participation. So
I love
if you're
that.
one of those people that, you're showing up to church and you're checking the box, there's seasons of life where like you do just need to be poured into, and like that's it. But
Mm.
um there, find a community, set that foundation for yourself, and fellowship with people, truly fellowship with them, and participate in the community. I think that's where God is going to bring so much, breathe so much life into you, and
Yeah.
what your purpose is. If you feel lost and that's something that you're seeking, like, that's, fellowship. Find a community of people that are going to encourage that, have those conversations with you, open up your mind to, different things, really pour into you and mentor you. And yeah, so that was a cool comparison, because I was like, wow, what
I like that
what
a
is
lot.
technically the difference of it? But yeah, I think Jesus really calls us to do that in so many different instances in the Bible, and really stresses the
Yeah.
importance of it. So you should prioritize it and make it important in your own life. And the blessings that have come into our life from doing that have been, I can look back at the seasons that we didn't have a community versus when we did. And our life was very, very different. So
Yeah.
just encourage anybody out there to seek it out. And sometimes you're not going to find the right community right away, but the Lord will let you know when you found the right one. So just continue to seek
Yeah.
Him.
I love that. That's such good encouragement. And I think that's not always easy. And it's not always comfortable to like do the thing or show up at the place or have the conversation, but we need it. You're right. It's so important to who we are and how we grow in the Lord. And like he set it up that way for a reason. So you might as well just embrace the uncomfortableness at first, or
Right.
the
Yeah.
extra like effort that you have to put in to show up, and the Lord will bless it if you do your part.
Yeah.
It's so
I
good.
remember one other thing I was going to mention, you just triggered me on that one, is just community is really hard. So I feel like I kind of
Yeah,
glazed over that. It is really, really hard, and it is a very
yeah,
vulnerable place to be,
yes,
because to have connection with people, you have to be vulnerable, and that can be really hard, especially if you don't know anybody. But yeah, I think it's so important to do it. And somebody once told me that in order to, I can't remember who it was, but I just have carried this with me for years, is like, in order to grow, you have to be stretched. And sometimes stretching is painful. Think about kids that are going through growth spurts, like, they have stretch marks, and
yeah,
they have growing pains and all of that. But in order to grow, you have to be stretched. And so if that's something that you're really seeking for your life, that's, you should go after it. And it will be uncomfortable, 1000%. Nobody's great at it, but you
yeah,
get better at it the more that you do it. So
yeah, yeah.
I
I
love that you
agree.
said that.
Yeah. Jess, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing what you're doing and what the Lord is doing in your life, and just being really honest about how you got here and the challenge of the challenge. I think you've done a great job of highlighting the challenge of growing new community, but also the beauty in it and the purpose in it and the value of like facing those challenges and taking the next step and moving forward. And I'm just excited to, have you back in 5 years when you guys are established as a church and you're growing and just like living in this mission that the Lord called you to years ago. So thank you for saying yes.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here and stretching me because I definitely was nervous. So I've had a lot of fun, but thank you so much, Catherine. It's been fun.
Yeah. Okay. For anyone listening, we'll be back next week to talk about another challenge that you might face in community. But Jess, if it's okay, I would love to link to the worship gathering in our show notes in case people want to check that out and see what you guys are all about. So you can find that there.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks for coming to the table. We hope today's conversation encouraged you as you seek Jesus in the big moments and the little ones. Check out the show notes for any scripture, resources, whatever we talked about today. Feel free to share this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, or share your thoughts with us. Come back and join us again next week. We'll be right here. If you haven't already, go follow or subscribe wherever you listen and find us on socials to catch up if you don't have time to listen throughout the week, or just to find out what all the next episodes are about. Also, we know you have things to say, examples to share, wisdom to give, so look for opportunities this week to share with those around you or even with us. All right, we'll see you next time.